If you're around my age in your 20s and you've started to get into the world of money and making money, probably everything that you've learned about saving up money and getting rich is completely wrong. In this video I want to share what I've learned over the past 3 or 4 years as someone in my 20s right now, and how you guys can basically save yourself a lot of time and mistakes and hopefully get rich a lot quicker. So let's get into this one, but I must say I hope you enjoy the show. If you enjoy this, like and subscribe please, as I do like to make these sorts of videos, and I hope it is a very good environment, the juxtaposition between the financial topics and the lovely woodland environment. So I want to start off with this one. Growing up, I grew up in a household where money wasn't necessarily flowing through things, abundantly. And that's fine. But when you are dealing with people who don't have a lot of money, what usually comes with that is a level of education about money which garners not having much money. Now, that's no diss to my parents, they did a great job at making everything work, but, they weren't rich. And I always understood from a young age because of this, a lot of things that people do around money is completely wrong. I think the biggest one that people do, and I'm going to start off with this first, is equating time to money. Let's say that you get paid, and I use this example all the time, let's say you get paid £10–15 an hour, that's great. But you can only work so many hours and get that much. If you're working for your money and only working for your money, you're not going to be able to get rich unless you get a very high paying job. Because, even if you work every single hour of the 24 hours in a day, which is humanly impossible, and do that every single day of the week, you only get X take home pay. You need to find a way to make multiple streams of income in a passive or more passive sense. Now, this whole idea of, passive income's a scam, people say this all the time. I feel like to do a completely hands-off method of making money, you are going to need to invest in building a business, but you can definitely do things to make a bit of extra cash on the side. You can go to work, but let me give you an example. Yesterday I went out with my friend, and when I came home I had £560 worth of eBay sales. Now, of course, I could have gone to work and maybe made an extra £120 a day, but I didn't. So if I made £120 at work, let's say for example, I'd have come home to an extra £500+, which would have given me over £600 worth of take-home pay in a day. You wouldn't have been able to do that if you're working at £10–15 an hour. That's just the facts of it. I think option 2 is once you do acquire that money, or rather the problem number 2, is once you do acquire that money and save it, you put that into a bank account. This is one of the biggest mistakes I see people make, because people think, money put into a bank account, that's good. It is, but only to an extent. My personal policy with bank accounts is I put maybe 6 to 12 months worth of my living costs in there, because my living costs are quite low. So I put them into that bank account, and that's basically going to get me through any sort of mistakes. If my car breaks down, if I want to go away to some place, if I want to do it, that's all covered. I've got no trouble there. But any money over that fund, or over that number, is going somewhere. Where that goes depends on how I feel, what I know, and what you guys know as well. For some of you it might be investing in a certain stock that you think is going to do well. For me, it might be buying some extra watches to resell for my business, or it might be buying some extra tools to make more money, or something like that. But having money sat in a savings account is not going to be good. Because in a time where inflation is like 6, 7, 8% in a lot of countries, a savings account that makes you 5% seems like it's keeping your money completely safe, but it's actually losing you funds every single year. So you're going to need to find a way to grow your wealth, and again, this is a more passive way to grow your wealth. Ideally that you don't work for, or don't work very hard for, but that isn't having it in the bank, because that is not going to make you rich. I feel like that's another big mistake. I feel like the third biggest mistake that, especially as young people make, is not having a plan and or a budget. Now this is kind of 2 points in one. Number 1 is a plan. Let's talk about what we want from life. On the way down here, I saw a Ferrari drive past me, and I thought, that's the kind of thing that I want, whether it's here in the UK or elsewhere. I want to be that guy in that Ferrari. That's not unreasonable in my opinion, and that's what I aim for. But if you want to be a guy in a Ferrari, what do you need to do? Do you need to sit here and film YouTube videos, and maybe people will like them and subscribe, and you'll get viewership and maybe an audience that way and build money off that? Or do you need to go to work and work harder? Or do you need to save money and cut your costs of spending? It's going to be different for different people, but failing to have a budget, or rather a plan, is issue number 1, because if you're not working towards anything, what are you doing, and why will you save money? For example, let's say that I'm saving up for a new car and it costs £6,000. Let's just use that for an example. If I start to cut my costs and plan this out, I now have a reason to save, whether it's I want to save for a holiday in Spain next year, whether it's I want to save for a new car, whether it's I want to save for a deposit on a house. What do you want out of life? Because whether it's, well, in regards to money, until you figure that out, you're going to have a lot of trouble saving it. Because it's very hard, in my personal life experience, and that's just me, maybe I'm wrong, but in my experience, it's very hard to work for something that you don't understand and don't care about. You will not care about your financial future if you don't know what you want from it. So that's a big thing. Another huge point is definitely the one that I previously mentioned, and that's budgeting. I see people going out every night, especially students, you guys can imagine. Any of you guys that live in the UK especially know how the culture is here for students. Booze every single night, drinking a lot, spending a lot, takeaway after every night out. They're spending £60-70 maybe on some nights, just on drinks and food and a taxi home. That is not helping. And it's like, yeah, that might be worth it. You've got to equate whether that's worth the value. You know, some people enjoy that. I personally don't. But if you enjoy that, do that maybe once or twice a week. But, you know, when you're buying Burger King 3 days of the week, it's not cheap food. And those costs absolutely add up. I'm not saying have a life depleted of all fun. No one wants to do that. And it's definitely, in my opinion, that I spend money alongside saving it. You know, I might save up 10 grand and spend 3. And people might say, well, that's dumb. If I don't spend the 3 grand, I feel like I'm poor. If I feel like I'm completely poor, I won't work anymore because it's like I'm working so hard, I'm getting nothing from it. Spend a bit, have a fun life, but don't be ridiculous. You know, think about the consequence of your actions. Whether it's you're spending your student loan and you're going to get in more debt, whether it's you're spending your wages and you can't keep up, or whether it's you're just not saving enough money to meet your goals and expectations and lifestyle that you want. That's another big thing. I think another huge thing that I would say about money is the one that I just mentioned again, and that is have fun with it. I think it is definitely a psychological thing, and maybe it's just me, but I think a lot of you guys will agree. Let's say you have 100 grand in the bank. A lot of money, that is. That's not bad. 100 grand. But you can't touch a penny of it. It's like, well, what's the point of having it then? You might as well not. And that's the same sort of thing as I just described. You know, if you've got a ton of money in your bank account, but you're not spending any of it on what you want, life's going to be quite boring. Spend a bit of it on fun. Don't deplete yourself of fun completely. You'll have a much happier life if you take the time to enjoy certain elements of it. Money is there for spending, but it's also there for accumulating and growing. You know, I feel like that's a few steps that I could have done with where I was starting out. I kind of had an idea anyway, but for a bit more guidance, you know, the things like figure out what you want. Figure out how to increase your income in some way. That's a big thing because I see this all the time. This is the biggest mistake I think people make. You know, oh, I want to afford this and that. It's going to take me 4 years to save up for it. Why? Find a way to buy it in 2 years. And then after that, not only have you got the asset that you want, you've also now got an extra stream of income, which is going to be making you richer, helping you for retirement, helping you for the next goal, something like that. You know, finance... And people might not like me saying this, but this is my experience up until this point. Finance is like a game of Monopoly. It's that simple. You've got to put your cards and your houses in the right place to make the right investments. You've got to do this and that. You've got to play the game and understand the game very well to win it. But it's like that. And it's also kind of like a game of snakes and ladders, in the sense that you win some, you lose some. Keep winning more than you're losing. And that is not impossible to do. Life is very, I don't want to say easy, but life becomes a lot easier when you understand certain elements of the game. And it's like, unless you want to live out here off the grid in the woods, which despite me having a nice time right now, I do not want to do that. First things first, it's freezing, so I don't want to do that. But unless you want to do that, you're going to need to understand money. And whether people like that or not, that's a fact. It's easy to understand this. And figuring this out in your early 20s or before your 30s, I think, will give you that advantage. Because, you know, I see it all the time. Geezers be about 35, 40, and they still don't understand these basic principles of money, of life. And that's why people get to a point where they're living paycheck to paycheck. Because they didn't save when they were in their mid-20s, you know. if you don't want to be as serious about it as me, I understand that. Maybe have your early 20s up to 23, 24, having just straight up fun, don't save anything. But once you get past that point, it's time to think about the future, really, isn't it? And that's fine, that's good, that's exciting. It's not daunting necessarily. It can be fun, it can be cool, it can be exciting, but you need to know what you're getting into, you know, and having that level of education is going to give you a lot more power and a lot more leverage in the future markets and in your future life. That's what I'd kind of say on this one. So if you enjoyed this video, of course, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe, and I hope to see you again soon. Goodbye.